Can't. Everybody else can, you can't.
Mute him.
Okay, we are live and we are recording. Excellent, thank you.
All right, so I see that folks are here, so I'm going to call the meeting to order. This is the Teaburg Planning Board regular monthly meeting. It's April 22nd. And we'll start with a roll call of the planning board members. Would you just identify yourselves? And Michelle, when you identify yourself, would you also give us a little introduction to Henry Hansen, who's joining us as a village intern?
Sure, absolutely.
Okay, so Rick Geiger, Chair.
John Olberg.
Hannah Carver.
Mark DeVocatus.
Michelle Matrani, and we have joining us Henry Hansen from St. Lawrence University, right? And this is his first planning board meeting, and he is going to participate for the summer with the planning board, as well as hopefully the village board, and do some work with Tom Myers. And I'm not sure on the town level, but that's a possibility too. So thanks for being here, Henry.
Yeah, welcome, Henry. We'll look forward to having you at some of our meetings, and I know Tom's looking forward to working with you on some of his issues too.
Thank you, pleasure.
My issues. Oh no.
You've got a lot of issues, Tom.
Rumor has it.
Let's see. Hannah, did you introduce yourself yet? Did we get the roll call to you yet?
I did say my name.
Oh, okay.
So I can say it again, Hannah
All right.
Carver.
So, and then Greg, you're next, right?
Yep, Greg Colucci, alternate member.
Great. And of course, we have Tammy here, village clerk, and Tom Myers, the code inspection officer, and also representatives of the applicant, Andy Sharaba and Joe Bose, who are familiar to many of the, or some of the, not many, some of the planning board members, but are here on a different matter tonight. The next
Maybe I should
agenda.
jump in and say that Cal Pham is also with NHS. She's been
okay.
with me a bunch on thinking about the trailer park, its subdivision and its future.
Great. Okay. So welcome, Chow. I didn't realize that you were with them. That's good to know. All right. So as I mentioned last time, so on the minutes, as I mentioned last month, Tammy and Morgan are still sort of catching up on things with the minutes for our last few meetings, and I'm hoping that they're going to be ready for our next meeting and that we'll be able to go over those at that point. So in other words, we're going to pass on that preliminary agenda item again, and we'll catch up on that at our next meeting. So now on to item 3 on the agenda, which is about a subdivision application, as I sort of summarized to you when I sent it around. It was submitted regarding the 60 or so acres that are located at 4380 West Seneca Road. That's also, it's a large parcel, a part of which is known as, at this point, Aubles Trailer Park. It's a parcel that was annexed by the village some years ago, and has, and at the time the trailer park existed and was, you know, a working and ongoing operation. So the application, the basic idea, as I understand it at this point, is to separate the existing parcel into 2 new parcels, or to two parcels, and in effect draw a property line from the existing northern line of the parcel to the southern line of the parcel. So a single straight line north to south through the parcel, dividing it into 2. And it would basically end up having the trailer park sort of defined as one parcel, and then the rest defined as the other parcel. That is all laid out in the applicant's submission, but I thought I'd just give that quick summary. Just a note about where we are procedurally and where we'll be going. At this point, we're right at the beginning stage of a subdivision review. It's referred to in the planning world as a sketch plan review portion of the subdivision review. And it involves the applicant basically providing us with preliminary information about what they're planning to do, and where they want to do it, and a bunch of factual information about the property itself, as well as a survey. They also provide a short form environmental assessment, which will, if we go on, we'll make more use of that as we go through the process of subdivision review. But that's there just for our preliminary information at this point to help us with the sketch plat review. The point of all of this is to give the planning board a chance to sort of review things, the big picture at this point, take a little bit of a dive into, a little bit more of the details about the application, poke at it a bit. We've got representatives of the applicant here to help us with that process, and Tom Myers can help us with that process as well. And just make sure that that we understand it and that there's nothing of any significant concern as we move through the process. From there, I guess what I'd like to do is start the process by reviewing the materials that were submitted, make sure that they're complete and in order, and that we can get the application accepted and the process of review moved on to the next stage, which we'll do tonight, which would be to classify the application or the subdivision as either minor or major. That's important because if we define it as minor, there's a whole different set of procedures that we move through on that than we would if we classified it as major. So I guess to move us forward efficiently here, I'd like to first welcome the applicant again and their representatives to the meeting, and ask you to give us a little introduction, introduce yourselves, as I don't think everyone on the board has worked with you before. And then following that, we'll go through the board consideration of the application itself, and any questions we might have, and so on. So, who would like to start for the applicant?
I'd be happy to start. I'm Joe Bose. I'm the Director of Real Estate Development with INHS, and I'm joined tonight by Chow Pham, who is Project Manager with INHS, as well as Andy Sharaba from TG Miller. TG Miller is the civil engineer working on the project, and they have provided the map that you are considering tonight. So just to give you a quick background, INHS has leisure living estates, or what is also known as Aubles Mobile Home Park, under contract. We have a contract with Phil Auble, who is the owner, to purchase the property, which includes the mobile home park itself, but also all of the vacant property around it that he owns. And we're sort of looking at this in a multi-phase kind of redevelopment, but the first phase would be to purchase the park and the property, and then put together an application to the planning board to basically improve the park, with the goal of making it basically a much nicer place to live, a nicer place to look at as you drive by. Our idea is to basically remove any of the dilapidated homes that are owned by the park, to replace them with new homes. There's a number of vacant lots there, which eventually we would be replacing with new energy efficient homes. And to find a place for a playground, to basically improve the roads. We've had the water and the sewer looked at, and they could both be upgraded. The sewer much more substantially than the water. There's we're looking at completely replacing basically the sewer system that comes out to the road. And so, you know, in order to basically sort of subdivide this into vacant land and park, we need this subdivision. That's why we're coming to you. We're financing, so the financing is separate for the vacant land and for the park. And so we need to basically sort of carve off the park from the rest of the land.
Joe, a quick question from me, just on that particular point. What is it about the financing that requires the separation of the park into an individual parcel?
Well, the loan so there's two loans that will be on the property. The first loan will be from a conventional lender, and the second will be from the state of New York. The state of New York has a pot of money specifically to help preserve parks, purchase parks, upgrade them, and preserve them, ideally maintaining them as affordable, and to try and sort of keep them out of the hands of unscrupulous real estate investment trusts. If any of you are familiar with the way that some of these parks are being sold to big corporations that basically are bundling them, and so the state of New York is trying to get good not-for-profit management companies and owners to purchase them, improve them, and try and keep them affordable. So basically the financing is all structured around the park itself. The income generated from the park is going to basically be able to pay the debt service. The vacant land right now has no income, and so it needs to be separate. In addition to that, if we ever decide to do something in the future with the vacant land, no matter what it is, continue to allow a farmer to farm it, to redevelop it in some way, we don't want it to be mortgaged along with the park. It needs to be separate. Otherwise, we'd have to get, you know, that vacant land out of the mortgage at some point in the future. So what we're trying to do is create a really clean line between the vacant land and the park so that only the park is mortgaged. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you. Another quick one, just on the sort of status of things. So you'd be envisioning then after this, you know, relatively simple subdivision application, that before anything else would be happening at the park, there'd be a site plan review and things like that would be, you'd apply for those kinds of things before, you know, anything much could happen in addition, correct?
Correct, yeah.
Yeah, we reached out, Rick, today to Tom, just to say, here's the list of items that we're looking to do as far as improvements, and Joe touched on those, just to clarify exactly which items would require site plan approval. So we're very clear going in everything that you need within that application, but it would be a separate application.
Correct, yeah, right. Well, and we know from past experience how the, you know, zoning ordinance and site plan review and subdivision activities end up being interrelated in ways that are sometimes difficult to understand. But this one I don't think is going to have that problem because the subdivision aspect of it is really relatively minor. It would be the site plan review portions that will have some real impact. Tom, at this point, why don't we move on? Unless, are there other things that the applicant has or specific application or questions from board members about, you know, the application itself? Because if not, then I'm going to ask Tom whether he has reviewed this application for the completeness of it that's required by section 411 of the ordinance. But first, are there any other preliminary questions for the applicant? John.
I have one question. I see in the application that the total amount of land involved in this project is 117 acres, but the parcels that we're considering tonight are the 60 acres that are in the center of that. What's the other land that is surrounding it?
That's the, John, that's the vacant parcels that go east to Main Street. And then it's also the portion in the town of Covert that's north of Seneca, which is the North Park section, we call it.
It's in a different county too.
Different county, different, yes. So that's interesting. So
So you said east of Main Street. You mean it's west of Main Street, right? But east of the park?
yeah, east of the park, I may have misspoke. East of the park, but to east all the way to Main Street, the west of Main Street, correct? Yeah.
Cool. It's a nice parcel.
Tom, so have you taken a look at the details required in the application to determine whether you think it meets the completeness requirements?
Yes, I have. It's quite complete. I'm pleased with the materials, especially that the only thing I had to ask for is because I misread the plan. And Andy was very generous and not making fun of me that I had the plan upside down, and we were able to clarify things and move on.
We've all done that. All right.
Yes, it's
Okay, so yeah, our first step in this is to sort of just be confident ourselves that the application is complete, and then we can move on. Anybody else have any questions or concerns about the completeness of the application that was submitted? All right, so the next part of this process that we're doing is the classification of this as to the type of subdivision review required. And the possibilities at this point are, as I said before, minor and major. And for a minor subdivision determination, there are specific questions that have to be answered. And if they're all answered no, then the subdivision application can be reviewed as a minor subdivision. And so what I propose to do, unless anyone wants to ask a question or seek a clarification, is go through the 5 questions and make sure that we're all in agreement that as to whether they are to be answered no or yes. All right, everybody all right with that? Okay, so the first question is, are any new streets needed? Doesn't look to me like there are any needed at this point. The action that's proposed is just to draw a new property line. Are any water sewer extensions needed? Again, at this point, doesn't seem like there are any. Are there any conflicts with the comprehensive plan, official map, or zoning regulations? I haven't seen anything that appears to me to be a conflict. Tom, have you looked at that?
I've looked at it, have not found anything that would be in conflict.
Okay.
Just one question. In looking at the drawing, there's a break in the zoning
Yes.
from residential to commercial industrial.
Right.
Does this property line fall on that, or I don't quite
No.
know where the line that's proposed is on the drawing?
I think I'll ask the applicant to clarify that. My quick response is that separate division, that zoning division, is a pre-existing line that isn't going to change at all. It's just going to exist, and it's a dotted line that's about a quarter of the way over on the page, and the new property line is a more well-defined line, about a third of the way over from the left on the page. But I could be wrong. For one thing, it's at this size, Some of this is kind of hard to read, but is that basically right? Andy, I guess I'll ask you.
Yeah, and if, Tammy, can I share my screen? Do I have that ability? It says host is disabled screen sharing.
Tammy's
Tammy,
microphone's off.
You're muted.
I was just being smart aleck anyway.
And if anybody wants to come in my office, I have a few copies of this survey map, and they can come look at them. And if they have questions, I perhaps can answer them. But the little electronic version does provide difficulty in looking at it clearly.
All right. Andy, I'm going to make you the co-host.
Okay.
And now I think you should be able to share, right?
Let's see. No,
If not, I can.
that's
No?
okay. No. I can just describe it. So, so John, on the left, parcel A, it's kind of got a jog in it on the south border. About 2/3 of the way to the east, there's a dashed line that goes up to Seneca Road.
Oh, okay, so it's that dashed line with the two dots, long dash, 2 dots, long dash.
Yes, and we tagged it vertically, zone commercial industrial, which is going west, and then residential going east.
I think John's talking about the proposed boundary line as opposed to the zoning district line.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I want everybody to be clear that the existing zoning district line is the dash line. So now our new property line is to the east of that. So parcel B, the mobile home park proper, will be entirely in R2. And then the parcel A will have a mixed zoning. It'll have commercial, industrial, and a portion that's residential too.
That answer your question, John?
Yes, yeah.
Great. All right, so can we say no to number 3? Are there any conflicts with the comprehensive plan, official map, or zoning regulations? Okay. I'm not seeing anyone saying no, so, but we're gonna say no to the question. We're just gonna, all right, you understand. So number 4 is the proposal is it for a cluster subdivision? You remember there's, 3 types of subdivisions that are possible in this ordinance: a major, minor, and cluster. And this is clearly not part of the cluster subdivision. And finally, will the subdivision result in 5 or more lots?
Could you count it for us, Andy?
I believe the answer to that's no as well. So let's let the minutes reflect that the planning board answered all of the questions no. And so now I'm prepared to entertain a motion to classify the subdivision as a minor subdivision under the subdivision regulation. Someone like to make that motion? John, you move, and second by Mark. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion?
I want to just raise something. Would it be possible for the applicant to, I know that there was a gas line going through the property. It might just be good to just show the extent of that easement on the next submittal. Do you have the width of that easement as well? So that's one comment or just point there.
Yeah, we can go through the deeds that are noted on the plat, and we can, if it's clear that's a specific width, then we can certainly add that to the final plat.
Great. And there's also a floodplain on the property, correct?
Floodplain?
Yeah.
I think a portion on the south portion of parcel A, Boardman Creek, maybe within the floodplain.
I think it would be helpful if that was delineated as well, even if just using basic, whatever it is, NWI or New York State wetlands, just showing that.
I think you have a nice map in the draft comprehensive plan that actually shows that. So we can do an overlay.
Great, thank you. That's all. Thanks, Rick.
Got it. Mark?
Well, as I was looking at the map that you guys submitted and comparing it to the zoning map of Trumansburg, which I think is also behind Tom in his screen. The gray, Tom, so that on the zoning map, the gray portion is parcel A, is that correct?
That's,
Much?
no.
Is that not correct?
No, because that's the zoning district. So part of, you see in the plat, there's a jog.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So that's encompassing more than just
So
that.
yeah, the gray is the industrial part of the zoning district, and what color is that? It's some version of brown. Has part of A and all of B in. So that's the R2.
I was trying to just wrap my head of making sure that stream was. I can figure out where that stream was relative to the larger zoning map, but I think I get it now. That they're not. Can't just compare them. Got it. Thanks.
Any further discussion? Okay, so all in favor of, let's see, do we have a motion? Yes, we have a motion. We have a second. All in favor of the motion, signal by saying aye.
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 Okay, that's everybody. Anybody opposed? I'll just ask formally. Okay, so the motion is passed, and we have classified the subdivision application now as a minor subdivision. So we'll be moving on through the next stages of review, probably at our next meeting, I would guess. The applicant can have things in order for the actual, now that we've gotten through the sketch plat review, now we'll go to the actual subdivision application, which will require the applicant to provide a little bit more detail, to provide the information that Greg and Mark have identified, and allow us then to make a determination of whether there's enough there and to make a decision on the application. We'll also, Tammy, I want to ask you about this. It may make sense to do the public hearing at the same time.
I would agree.
Yeah, so we'd start with the public hearing.
Yep, so that would be, the date is Thursday, May 27th.
Mm-hmm.
Is the fourth Thursday of May. Also falls on a holiday weekend, so I don't know if people have travel plans. But we can, as long as I have at least 2 weeks, we can move forward.
Okay, and we'll also do the seeker analysis at that time as well. I'd say we'll do that before our decision, obviously. So those will be, fairly significant things that'll be happening at our next meeting. If the applicant gets an application in, that's always the first requirement. So my guess is with application.
Yeah,
All
we'll
right.
work with Tom and Tammy to get that application material in as soon as possible. So
Okay.
make sure that we're on the May agenda.
Great.
Yeah.
All right, so that concludes that agenda item, and the only things left are new and old business. We don't have anything that's been suggested to me at this point, but if anyone wanted to raise something, for future consideration, or if there's something, about the past that they'd like information about, now's the time. John?
John, can I just jump in? Tammy, I think I'm still the host. do you want to take control back so I don't screw something up?
You're only the co-host, so you're good.
Oh,
You can't
okay.
screw anything
All
up.
right, good. All right. Keep my hands off the mouse.
I'm just curious to know if we can have some announcement as to when the comprehensive plan, the new comprehensive plan study is going to be wrapped up.
Well, I know that there's, I think if it had, maybe it already happened, but I know the committee was meeting this week, and I believe the trustees had or will have a working session on it.
Last evening,
Last night.
Okay.
last evening they met and reviewed, I think it was section 4, Tom. I can't really remember,
Oh,
but yeah, so
I
they
don't know
met
what
for
section you reviewed, just
a
that they
while.
did it.
Yeah, a while last night. So they didn't go forward with that.
Do you know, Tammy, if there's a target date for, timeline? I know the timeline is completely blown up at this point.
Yeah, at this point, I think that they're looking to, and correct me if I'm wrong, Tom, but I think the last thing I remember is talking about maybe some public input meetings on the draft at some time in maybe June. But
Yeah, and yeah, let's keep the qualifiers in there, but yes,
yeah. Could be, maybe, should be
yeah.
this summer. I think that's the hope.
And there'll probably be public information about it at the State of the Village also.
Right, so the State of the Village event, which is kind of 2020s and partially 2021 at this point, is Saturday, May 22nd at the Farmers Market Park from 9 to noon. So, and I think that they plan on talking about the comp plan at that point too, or the draft.
So you reminded me of a question, Tammy. Have the village and municipal clerks in general been informed what the schedule is for beginning to resume in-person meetings at this point?
The executive order was extended. So now we're looking, I think the new one expires the end of May. The village board did talk about that in their meeting last night. At this point, we are going to continue to go forward with Zoom.
With Zoom, yeah.
Yep.
Right.
Yep. And it mainly, it kind of boils down to the room requirements, right? The separation of 6 feet when you take our little meeting room and you put 5 board members and some staff in there, and then there's only room for a couple of residents. So there becomes an accessibility problem as well. So yeah, so we're going to keep Zooming until further notice, I guess.
Okay. Any other questions, concerns, things to think about for the future? All right, so I think we're ready to have a motion to adjourn. Hannah moves to adjourn. Is there a second? Michelle? All right, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No one? Okay,
Sure.
so the meeting is officially adjourned. Thank you so much,
You're
everyone.
everybody.
welcome, everybody.
Thank
Have
you
a
very
good
much.
night. It was nice to
Thank you.
see you all.
Great to see you all.
Thank you.